Hi, today we're looking at dot points PS3 and PS14. And for these ones, you need to be able to assess farm production systems based on measurements of quality or quantity and evaluate management strategies used to assess and then meet market specifications. So these are related to each other because we're basically using tools to kind of work out how good our quality is, and we need to evaluate them. And then we need to think of strategies to actually meet market specifications. So let's have a look at three of them here. And the three we're going to look at are kill sheets, cattle care, and MSA. And the first one is kill sheets. So this is an example here of a kill sheet. This is basically when an animal is sent to the abattoir and it's killed, you get a sheet back that says all the information about that individual animal. So it'll say fat depth, the fat color, the marbling score, the age of the animal, the NLAS tag number, all the information that's measured, even the pH of the meat, all that information will be measured and written down on a kill sheet, and the farm will get back the kill sheet. And then that way they can work out how their animal performed, basically. So what the carcass actually looks like. It's hard to tell what it's going to look like when it's on farm, but once it's killed, you can tell much more information. So breed, sex, live weight, carcass weight, fat depth, fat color, muscle score, pH, and ribeye area are some things that are on the kill sheet. And so this is a way of assessing how your production is going, which is what the dot point's about, assessing farm production systems. So it helps you give you very specific feedback about how your cattle are going. And for example, if they've got a really low fat depth, you might need to fix that. If they've got a low marbling score, you might need to fix that. But it's a way of assessing what you're doing on farm. And it's a management strategy used to assess your production. So producers also get awarded a good sale price that they deserve. So rather than people buying it when it's alive and not really knowing how it actually turns out, they're paid for what they actually produce. And consumers are then being supplied with meat of high standard because they know what they're getting. Some disadvantages of kill sheets are that the beef is immediately downgraded if it doesn't meet specifications. You need to have trained assessors, and time needs to be taken to assess all the criteria. Now, I really want you to do an evaluation here on your own, but you need to probably write something about it being really effective, because it's a great way of the farmer getting really clear feedback. It's kind of like getting reports at school, or getting feedback on how you're teaching from students directly. That kind of information is what's happening here from the farmer. They're getting the exact measurements, objective measurements, not subjective information, but objective measurements about how their animals have performed, which is really important. So, kill sheets are really great, and you should write something about in there why they're good. So you need to have an assessment, you need to give your judgment, and you need to say why. And so there's plenty of information there, and what I've told you to be able to do that. Cattle care is a voluntary system called a quality assurance program. Now, it's basically a series of checks and balances, and it's a set of things that the farmers need to do and follow. They need to produce their cattle in a certain way, handle them in a certain way, give them certain chemicals and not other chemicals to make sure that they get to a certain quality. It's an optional system, so because it's not mandatory, it doesn't really have an effect on the whole industry. But cattle does produce better quality animals. So it is a way of kind of assessing your production and making sure your production is kind of following the best way possible of producing beef to produce the best quality animals. So it improves the quality of the beef due to a more regulated production process. It decreases the risks of producers not meeting market specifications. The disadvantages, though, are there's off-farm risk. When the animals leave, they can be transported and can get stressed and stuff like that, which causes problems. It's optional, which means that it doesn't improve the reputation of the whole industry. And also, if your neighbors are using certain chemicals, that can affect your chemical status and cattle care status. So you should give an evaluation. It's helpful for those that use it, but it doesn't necessarily give benefits to the whole industry, but it does allow producers to kind of assess their production along the way. So you need to write an evaluation here about that. MSA is a really important one. It's something you should hopefully know about it a little bit already, but it's a system that's been designed by Meat and Livestock Australia, MLA, who are responsible for research and advertising and marketing for beef and red meat in Australia. And so Meat Standards Australia is a system. MSA is a system that was developed by MLA, and they did it based on consumer taste tests. So they worked out from hundreds of thousands of consumer taste tests what people wanted in different cuts of beef, what they liked, what they wanted. And then they worked out backwards, like, how do we produce this? How do we actually make this happen in beef? Like, what are the things we have to do on farm to make this piece of beef that the consumers really like in their taste tests? And so basically MSA gives recommendations as well to consumers as part of it. They not only help produce a good quality piece of beef on farm, but they also help inform consumers on how to cook the product. So if you go to Woolies or Coles and you find MSA beef there, it'll be very clearly labelled with a label like this. It'll have information on its grading, the quality of it, how to cook it properly so that you don't kind of stuff up the quality when you cook it. So advantages of MSA, it's graded according to either 3, 4, or 5, 3 being good, 5 being the best. And basically the carcasses are graded once they're slaughtered, and they then grade it based on the quality criteria on the specifications of the carcass. And so it removes the need for consumers to kind of be specialists and have heaps of information and knowledge about beef. And it also helps provide feedback to producers regarding taste and flavor and what consumers want. Disadvantages of MSA is it's based on individual tastes. So they need a large sample, which they did do, and then cooking skill can still impact. So if consumers cook a piece of meat very badly, that affects the product quality. So you should do an evaluation here of MSA. Basically, you should be saying that it's a very good system of guaranteeing quality, or not guaranteeing, but basically improving the quality to consumers and helping them kind of make better decisions about beef, helping the price match up with the quality a bit more. In the past, the price didn't really relate to the quality very well. So the more money you're paying for a piece of beef, the better quality it is, and helping them cook it right so that they don't stuff it up. So it's a very good system. You should talk about those reasons why here in your evaluation. For the next dot point, or the next part of PS14, where we need to talk about ways to meet marketing specifications. So I've given 2 examples here. You could do more. It'd be good if you had 3, but I've given you just 2 as an example here. So marbling. Marbling can be improved by basically breeding and feeding. Angus and Wagyu are good breeds that you can incorporate into your herd to improve marbling. Obviously, feeding them a grain diet in a feedlot increases marbling, and it's a very effective way of increasing marbling score. The pH of meat, which is a specification, how do we meet the right pH? Basically, a couple of ways here. If you have less stress on the animals and decreased stress levels, particularly close to slaughter, it helps prevent use of glycogen in their muscles and hence achieving a 5.3 to 5.7 pH upon slaughter. And this leads to lighter red and more tender meat. Also, feeding them prior to slaughter. You don't want to feed them too much because anything in their stomachs is wasted, but you want them to have enough energy when they're slaughtered that the glycogen in their muscles turns into lactic acid and therefore drops the pH to 5.3 to 5.7, which is the right pH to give you nice red color and tender meat. So those are 2 ways to meet pH and ways to meet these 2 specifications. It'd be good if you had more there than just 2. Here's past questions. So 2013, outline a problem a farmer may experience in meeting market specifications. So for example, I said fat depth measured at the pH site on cattle determines how palatable and juicy the piece of beef is. So I've kind of outlined and named the specification, outline a named specification. I've named it, I've outlined it, and then clearly articulates the problems. I've done 2 here, problems in meeting this market specification. So it may not be possible to meet this spec due to drought. Drought will both decrease amount of pasture and probably increase price of grain. This might not allow cattle to get enough production energy, which you'll learn about next year, to properly meet high fat depth. Disease may also cause cattle to growth rates to drop, meaning they'll also not meet a given fat depth in time. This is the last question here, 2016, question 26C. So explain how 2 management strategies can be used to improve the quality of a farm product. Again, I really want you to be doing this every question, especially when it says 2. I've got 1 and I've got 2. So it's very clear to the marker that there is 2 things there. I've even underlined them to make it even more obvious. So I've said 2 management strategies, feedlotting and then breeding programs are 2 things that you could do to improve the quality. Now I have to relate it here to the quality. and how it changes the quality. So I've well and truly done this for 6 marks here. Feedlotting involves placing animals on a diet of grains and roughage in an intensive production system. They intake very large amounts of energy, leading to significant weight gain, reach high fat depth more quickly than grazing. Due to the high amounts of production energy, Angus and Wagyu breeds can also store this excess energy as intramuscular fat or marbling, improving quality and price. Breeding programs. Number 2, using a breeding program such as line breeding, which we'll learn about next year, and the use of EBVs, which you may already know about, but we'll also learn about next year, helps to analyze and improve specific targeted traits and hence quality on farm. For example, selecting a higher EBV bull for 400-day weight will mean the offspring will likely mature earlier, leading to larger but younger animals at maturity, giving better quality and more tender beef. So that's a thorough answer for 6 marks there.